Red Beard Podcast is brought to you by these cool dudes.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Red Beard Podcast. This is your boy Cooley, and I'm chilling with Tony over here. Say what's up, man.
What's going on, everybody? So, guys, we have some awesome stuff this episode. We got a couple guests. First guy we're going to be talking with is Justin Sloan. You can actually check him out at justinsloanauthor.com. He's working on a couple different things. One is Land of Gods, which if you go to his website, you can actually get the first issue free. Also, he is writer on the Game of Thrones video game, which you guys know about if you're familiar with Telltale Games. And he also worked on The Walking Dead Michone. So you got a lot of good stuff coming from him. And who else are we working with, Cooley?
You know Roberto.
Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah, Steambox Roberto. Yeah, I got a little interview that we did with him earlier this week based on E3. So yeah, just getting right into it, man. Game of Thrones. This is what kind of linked us up in the first place. As you had mentioned that you wrote for the Game of Thrones game from Telltale Games. I'm loving what I've been playing so far, but I admittedly have been kind of stretched thin as far as my ability to play as much as I'd like to. With other things going on in podcasts, work, stuff like that. But tell me a little bit about what that was like working on that game, man.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a life-changing experience in a way because I got started writing back in the day on fiction when I had read the Game of Thrones books and fell in love. And, I was sitting there looking for other great books to read. I had read Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson and some other awesome fantasy books, but there wasn't anything that was really catching my attention in the way Game of Thrones had. And so I decided to start writing, and then, got into screenwriting and got into video game writing and ended up at Telltale Games and then got to write on Game of Thrones. So it was this big full circle, like, oh my God, this is the most amazing property in the world. I can't believe I'm writing on it experience.
That's awesome, man. So I also noticed that it said, I was reading some of your stuff online and I came across something that said you worked on The Walking Dead as well.
The Walking Dead miniseries, Michone. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I have seen that one. I haven't played it yet because I'm still on season 2.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. I'm like so far behind on some of this stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, I worked there for about 2 years, and I started right when season 2 was coming towards its close. So one of my coworkers who started with me at the same time was able to work on it a little bit, but I unfortunately was not. So
not only are you working on one of my favorite properties, Walking Dead, but it's Michone, which is one of my favorite characters in that property. What's your affiliation with The Walking Dead? Not affiliation, but what is your history with The Walking Dead? Are you like a huge fan in the same way that you were with Game of Thrones?
Not at all in the same way.
Okay.
I definitely loved it. I'd read all the comics. I'd watched the TV show and all that. It wasn't like my obsession in the same way that Game of Thrones is. I read all the Game of Thrones stuff. I write for Pop Sugar now on it as well on the show. Oh, nice. So whenever there's an episode, I cover a couple articles on that. And so it's definitely a different ball game.
Yeah.
But I loved it. Michonne was an awesome character, of course. The comics get a little crazy and way out there, more than our games did probably. And big fan, but I think it was mostly, I don't remember if I was into it much before. I thought I would go to Telltale, and when I saw that Telltale had done Walking Dead and that was their big thing, I started looking into it and, of course, read all the comics and got obsessed.
Nice.
I got a quick question for you, man. So, writing these games, as far as, I guess we'll jump into Game of Thrones because that's, it's huge. And a lot of people are familiar with the show. So obviously the game might be something that they want to jump into too. How does that work with your writing for the game and the storyline of the show? Because I know sometimes it's a little bit different. Like, are you at liberty to change things like as you see, or do you have to obviously sit with people that are on, a team of people and decide which way the storyline is going to go? Like, how close do you have to stay to the show?
Yeah, so to back up a step, too, I'll just tell people who haven't checked out the game yet. It follows a part of the show. I think it was between seasons 4 and 5. I forget exactly.
Yes.
You guys probably know. Okay. And so it follows along those lines around the time when Joffrey, spoiler, if you haven't seen back then, when Joffrey was killed.
Yeah. He deserves a spoiler.
Yeah. Yeah, so it followed around that time frame, but it followed one family up in the north that is only briefly mentioned in book 5, the Foresters. And it's like a one line that not even their name is mentioned. That's it. So we had a lot of freedom with that, which is great. Of course, we have other characters. I think we had Daenerys, Tyrion, we have Cersei, a few others. I imagine I forget right now off the top of my head because that's how it is when you have little kids. But the hard part was, whenever we wanted to incorporate those characters and that timeline and that what's going on with that, we definitely had to check with HBO. So, of course, the first step would be that we'd all be working on it together, whiteboarding and whatnot, and calling each other out and saying, no, that'll never work. Oh, no, the fans will hate that. Or, I'm not sure HBO would go for this. And in some ways, it worked on our own way as well. I can't probably go into too much details on that, but people who've played will know that there's this whole thing with the North Grove. And I don't want to spoil it or anything, but when we were coming up with what the North Grove is and how it works, that's definitely something that you have to check with HBO on, because there's kind of a not really magical, but a non-natural element to it.
Gotcha. That's cool, man. So did you, how did you necessarily, you said you got a job working for Telltale Games, but how did that come about? Because, obviously it's a great company, and the fact that you're working on Game of Thrones is, to quote you, is a life-changing experience. So how did you find yourself there? That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree. So I was in the military back in the day. I did 5 years in the Marines. I went off to the government. I got a couple degrees. I went to the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco as an Asia analyst, and all this other life, And during that process, I had started writing, and I was falling in love with it. I think what happened is I sat down to write my first fantasy novel. I was like, I'll write a book by the time I'm 50. I'll start now. And within 3 months, I had like 160,000 words done. And so I was like,
that's insane.
Awesome. Yeah, it was cool.
That's insane. Within 3 months, all right. Cool, man.
Yeah, it was great. The words sucked. They were horrible, of course.
Right.
I've since rewritten them over the last 5 or 6 years, and now they're out. So.
Baby steps, man.
Baby steps, yeah. But I fell in love with the process. I just loved writing so much that I couldn't not do it. And so I started spending evenings and mornings writing as much as I could. And at one point, for a while, I was thinking, I'll live a 2-track me. I'll have the career track, Justin, and the writing side of life. And then I was at the Federal Reserve Bank doing that Asia stuff, writing on like political changes in Taiwan and India and whatnot. And that was kind of cool, but I think it was more about the prestige in my mind, what it is. Like when you're a kid and you think you love somebody, but you find out it's really an infatuation.
Yeah.
It was like that. And so what I was really in love with, my true love, was writing. And I decided I'm going to go 100%, full and deep. And so I started looking around. I started connecting with people on LinkedIn, emailing people at Pixar and Disney, and any way I could find anybody, who could give me advice. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't, saying read my books, help me sell my screenplay or anything like that. I was just asking for, generic career advice. And I was looking for connections, people who'd been in the military, people who'd done the UCLA screenwriting program like I had. Right. And found a few of those who got on the phone with me and gave me advice over the years. And out of, I don't know, I'd say like 75% of people that you connect with respond and are nice and cool. And then out of those, like a few are helpful and actually like in the industry, which is awesome. And and out of those, 2 of them had been at Pixar, and both of those people from Pixar ended up moving over to Telltale. One with me at the same time, one about 6 months before me. And that one I had emailed and said, hey, I saw that you moved over to Telltale Games. They look pretty awesome. I see a writing position open. I'm going to apply for it. And I applied and got an HR interview. And then he called me up and was like, hey, buddy, who I've only talked to on email, but you're applying for my company. If you get the job, I'm going to be your boss. So that'll be awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so I'd been in contact with him for about a year and a half, just random emails here and there, like nothing big, but like, that was actually before I started the UCLA program. So I'd actually asked him about the program, what his thoughts were about the teachers and whatnot. And then I enrolled in the program, took it, touched base with him once or twice, like, I'm loving the program. Thanks for your advice, that kind of stuff. So yeah, not like we were best friends forever or anything like that. But it kind of worked out where I had some writing samples that the team of readers loved. I went in for the interviews and did well. I was able to tie in my military experience slightly because we had done war games, and also in the government we had done tabletop exercises. Yeah. So it's like kind of a similar concept where you're coming up with scenarios and you're writing them out and you're thinking about how the players are going to interact with these scenarios and what they'll take away and all that. A little different than player agency in a video game, but not 100%.
Gotcha.
So Justin, first of all, thank you for your service, man. I didn't realize that you were actually in the military. That's pretty awesome.
I was going to say the same thing, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Secondly, though, dude, you are part of a team of writers that, I mean, it's the Avengers of writing, in my opinion, because you guys are awesome. Pretty much everything I've played from Telltale has given me so many feels that, I'm just like, by the end of each game, I'm just like, I literally am brought to at least 1 or 2 tears, which is a lot for me because I'm not a crier. But
yeah, wait till you read my novels, man. You'll bawl.
But yeah, I mean, like that is, I mean, first of all, congratulations, man, because to me that's making it, man. You've made it. That's awesome. But I have a question about the process, because in my mind I'm thinking, to be a writer or to be like a podcaster like we are, you have to have somewhat of an ego, because you've got to, I mean, you're saying stuff, you're writing stuff, you have these ideas, and you just have to have an ego to think that somebody else gives a shit about what you're doing and what you're writing, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that you're self-centered or conceited, but there's got to be something about you that you're just proud of yourself, right? You have a confidence. When you're sitting in a room with a team of writers and you're bouncing ideas off of people, how often and how does it feel when the ideas that you're throwing out just aren't jibing? Is that something that's defeating, or does it spur you to come up with more? How does that work?
Yeah, I think that's all about professionalism. And I'll go back a step and say, yes, definitely that's the case. Most writers are pretty full of themselves, or just delusional,
right.
There's a certain line there between sane and not sane and all that. But I've worked with a lot of novelists on different projects too, and I've worked in the video game scenario there, and I've consulted on a couple things. To be clear, I actually left Telltale a couple months ago, 2 months ago. I wasn't sure because you said you're there.
So I take it all back, man. I take it all back.
Yeah, you should.
I'm kidding.
I was there for 2 years, and I decided to leave. And what I'm actually doing now is I'm over at military.com writing articles for veterans and helping them transition. A lot of them are related to entertainment industry stuff, like how to get into military advising on set and all this.
Wow, that's just so much. That is so much more important than working for Telltale. So I apologize for calling that the Avengers. You're on the Avengers now for sure.
It's actually quite. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that. Anyway, there was an
I can't talk about my relationship with Tony Stark.
Yeah, I almost did go work on an Avengers title, so that's kind of funny that we're throwing this out there.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool.
But anyway. So the question was what again? I'm working in a room with people and when you're throwing feedback around, right? And not getting ideas shut down and all that.
Right.
I think it's all about professionalism. You'll work with different groups of people who it's not a problem at all. If I'm working with my co-writer right now on a book, we're doing some books and some screenplays, and it might be this app kind of video game-ish type thing. It's perfectly fine. I don't care at all when he rejects something that I throw out there because he does it in a professional manner. There's other people that you could work with in your professional career that are amateurs at this whole game, and they just don't understand that a first draft writing is a first draft writing, or a first draft idea is a first draft idea.
Right.
I think the best way to work is, don't be afraid to say anything, throw spaghetti at the wall, see if it sticks, that kind of approach. Mm-hmm. Some people don't understand the creative process and don't get that. And then that's disheartening, not so much because they're rejecting your ideas, but because they're being so stupid about it.
Right.
So I will say that happens in any kind of creative endeavor, whether I've been working, with screenwriters or novelists or whatever. It happens.
Now, is it one of those things where it's refreshing when you find somebody who's a professional, or do you find it?
Oh my God, yes.
Or do you find it there's more people out there that are professional than not?
I kind of think it's less than are.
Okay, all right.
Honestly. but maybe I'm the jerk. I don't know. But like, I just recently paired up with this author, P.T. Hilton. He has a book called the Sane Holloway series. It's like this book of assassins, fantasy type stuff, Nice. And we're pairing up and stuff, and we're just jiving. Like every time we're throwing down each other's ideas from time to time, of course. But we're just like, well, what about this instead? Or that's kind of cool. But what if we take it this direction? And we just keep bouncing off of each other, and getting better and better and better. And it's just, oh my God, it's like I've been trying to tread water for 5 years, and I finally just like got on an island, and now there's awesome tropical fruit everywhere. And
Nice.
It feels good. Yeah. No offense to all those other people that I just dissed in that sense.
I feel like it's good though, in a sense, to have I feel like rejection can kind of make you stronger in a sense, but I feel like if you're working with somebody and you're always like jiving, going back and forth, and like, this idea is awesome, I feel like there has to be that moment where one of you says this isn't going to work, because if everything works, you don't know what really does not work, and does work for sure. So I feel like it's good to kind of have that back and forth and have that honesty with like the person that you're working with. And I'm sure you've kind of come into that where you have to be like, that doesn't really work,
Yeah, for sure. We definitely do. And then there's a different side of Notes, which Terry Rossio, who wrote Pirates of the Caribbean, Aladdin, a bunch of other awesome stuff, Shrek, et cetera, et cetera. He was on the podcast On the Page, I think it is, recently, and he was talking about two kinds of notes. There's the regular notes, which are what we're talking about, the good style ones, and then there's what do you call it, like substantive notes or something. The point being, like, that's when notes, they don't get the story. They're not trying to help the story. They're trying to make it into whatever they think a story should be.
Right.
And those are the kind of notes that, are frustrating and that really shouldn't be in the room. If you're giving notes on what you have in your head that's not something we discussed, then we need to go back to stage one, because why are we going down this weird path that I don't understand, Right. And that's happened a few times in writing with partnerships where it's just, they're trying to go this way, but you haven't communicated it. And I think all you have to do at that point is step back and say, okay, let's look at the outline. Where are we trying to get with this? Because it's great to go to the end point and then work backwards, and that's how you can get to a great story. But if everybody has different opinions of what the end state is, that doesn't help.
When you when you work for a company like Telltale Games or have, and it's just like you're working on such serious projects and that the audience that is going to be basically being engrossed in your story and stuff like that is going to be a big audience. I mean, how do you set out to kind of conquer your day? Like, what does a day in the life of Justin look like, when you walk into work, and like, where does that day start and where does it end?
That's a good question. I mean, for me personally, it was always just about telling the best story I could. I don't think that was really like much of a concern of it. You have to stay true to the IP that you're working on, the intellectual property, the title,
right.
And to the characters. And so my biggest point is that, it's smart for people to assign me to Game of Thrones because I'm 100% obsessed with it.
Right.
I think the hard part comes in when certain people work on properties that they're not in love with, and I don't comprehend that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it's really just like, okay, I'm working on this property I love. I'm going to be able to tell the best story that I can. I'm going to do research into it. You're not going to skip corners or, and it's about understanding what the theme of the show or the property really is. Like, different people have opinions on Game of Thrones. Some people think it's just about, upsetting the audience and chopping off heads and killing your favorite characters, but that's not it at all. Like, right? Like, I think he did that with Ned Stark in the beginning to set it up, but the rest of the family, that's the story. The story is about the family who all got separated and how they're kicking butt, and now they're going to be reunited at some point to kick butt some more and help save the world. And that's an awesome story. And yeah, it might be bittersweet at the end, and bad things will probably happen along the way, but I think it's still like an uplifting story with a good theme.
Right.
Correct.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I completely understand and agree with what you're saying as far as like working on something. You have to be passionate about it, because I can't comprehend either working on something that I am just like dreading to work on every day. That would be a total drag for me. So as far as what you're doing now, can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I know you briefly touched upon it. I'm a little bit curious as to what that website was and what you do there.
Yeah, well, so that's I'm doing a few things, but the main, like, the job is military.com. And so they write articles, or what we do is the content side of it, which is writing articles and editing other people's articles for veterans transition out of the military. So I've done a few, like the one I mentioned about military transition into advising for film, which is kind of cool. We also have a podcast that we do called Military Veterans and Creative Careers, which is, the same idea. We're interviewing different people who are actors, directors, screenwriters, writers of novels and comics and whatnot, video games. And so I kind of cover some of that in my military.com job as well. I did another article that was kind of more of a fun one called What You Can Learn About the Civilian Workspace from Game of Thrones. So looking at, the idea of Tyrion always having his champion, and you got to have somebody at work who can be your champion. And you never know when certain people's heads are going to get chopped off and all these things that aren't as much a case in the military. But when you go into the civilian world, it's like, you got to play a little politics here. You got to watch your back a little bit. You got to find some champions, so we kind of have fun with the articles. Every once in a while we write some, just like top 10 jobs in IT, or something like that.
Right.
Because veterans are not just interested in Hollywood, unlike me.
Right.
Yeah. But then on the side, like I mentioned, I did a little bit of video game consulting for a mobile company and some other writing for some other mobile games. And we're doing this app called Bound. It's this storytelling app that is basically like an e-reader, except for you can swipe left and right, and there's cool things you can interact with, like looking at maps of the book and seeing like connections unfold as you go through the story or going
that's sick.
looking at. Yeah, it sounds really cool. I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about it, so I'll probably stop right there.
All right.
It looks really awesome, and we're excited to be doing that. And then the novels and the screenplays. Actually, we recently received a few offers on screenplays, which is pretty cool because in the past I've optioned a screenplay, but like one of those dollar options, and I've written on assignment, but not for much. And now we're actually getting real offers on one of our feature screenplays. So that was all in the last 2 weeks. So that's pretty exciting.
Wow. Congratulations, man.
Thanks. And then I just got awesome new covers for my Falls of Redemption books, which are called Land of Gods and Retribution Calls. If you guys want to check those out, the covers, I'm like blown away. Like I feel like a real author all of a sudden, I've been writing books.
Yeah, I actually just saw the cover of
Land of Gods. Yeah.
Land of Gods, yeah.
Sick.
You like it? You better say you like it.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It really is.
I was
cool.
like, ooh, yeah. And then Retribution Calls, I have it up there right now. Maybe by the time the podcast airs, it'll be updated. The one right now is kind of a placeholder, and then there's a way better, even cooler one coming pretty soon. So
I always know when like a cover really interests me because I'll look at it for a couple minutes, just keep thinking like which one of these guys is gonna take the first hit. You know what I mean? There's like 8 angles, and I'm like, who's gonna hit first?
Yeah.
And I'm like just going over it in my head. I had a question that I was going to ask you, and it just I just lost it. It's cool. Go ahead, man. I'll come back to it.
Yeah. So, Justin, you had mentioned that you may have had an opportunity to work on the Avengers and such like that. Are you a comic book fan, or was that just a job that kind of came across?
I'm more of a writing fan. It's kind of the same with games. I'm sorry to say I love games, but I definitely can't say I'm as much of a gamer as a lot of these people I worked with. And
Okay.
that's a benefit these people have. Like talking about the idea of what you're obsessed with, what you're writing, what you're working on. Some people that go into a room and they can quote everything about every comic about the Avengers ever made. And I've definitely put in my time, like reading them and studying them and watching the YouTube videos and all that.
Right.
But I think I had a period in my life where I read comics as a kid up till around 12 or 13 or 14. And then I got really serious about Japan studies, and I was like obsessed, and I was reading manga at that point, so it's a little bit different, but not completely. But then I got obsessed with, Japan and Japanese careers and international diplomacy and all that. And then in grad school, I even swore off fiction for 2 years because I was like, I'm not going to do it. Like I saw it as like my weakness because I was so obsessed with it. And I was like, I'm going to focus on building a real career.
Right.
In hindsight, I wish I hadn't done that because obviously I've gone the opposite route. But yeah, so compared to a lot of people out there, no. But I do, I'm reading some of these comics like the Doctor Doom stuff and like how he came to be who he is, with the whole idea, spoilers maybe, of how he wanted to save his mom. And that's kind of like what drove him so much and caused the explosion that destroyed his face and all this really cool stuff that you're like, wow, if I had written that, I'd feel so proud of myself.
Oh, right. Yeah. Like you're talking about the one where they kind of like tie it to like sorcery and like magic and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but there's this Doctor Doom, not Doctor Strange, but Doctor Doom.
Right.
Where he goes into the afterlife to try to save his mom because a demon took her down there, and the demon like burns his face or something. Or then there's an explosion that actually burns his face. This is one reason, all this stuff that's like you're reading this, and it's really cool because it gives this 3-dimensional character to this villain who, if you don't read the comics, you're just going to be like, oh, that's a weird looking villain with a green cape and a funny iron mask thing. But there's so much more to it. Yeah,
that was a really, really good storyline. I remember that.
And then, of course, there's the Game of Thrones comics they're doing now, which are awesome, but different worlds.
I didn't see. I haven't read those, but I heard that they're actually. It's basically like it's the book.
Yeah, I mean,
Like-
but different. It's it's more the book than the TV show. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, and they actually try to make Tyrion look more like Tyrion would in the book and stuff like that. So
Now, out of all the stuff that you've worked on, I mean, it seems like you've gone from writing for games and your own books that are doing pretty well, and you mentioned getting your offers for screenplays, and that's something that Cooley and I have kind of talked about from time to time. Like we have an idea that we want to put a screenplay together and tried to, I guess, eventually get an offer on it. But that whole world to me is very foreign and seems like something that is, I wouldn't even know where to begin. So, if you're trying to get your screenplay sold, I mean, where do you start with that? Like, how do you, I feel that you can't just walk into an office. How do you start that process?
yeah, so I'm gonna, I always throw out my own stuff when I do these things.
No, totally, man, definitely, go for it.
We recently had somebody on the Creative Writing Career podcast named Ashley Scott Miller, and I like his advice. I liked his advice especially because it was his advice that got me to get those screenplays out there and get them the offers on them.
Yeah.
And his advice is you don't have to be writing these big tent poles, you don't have to be one of the top 50 people in Hollywood right out the gate. You can write these small screenplays and get them made, and so we're looking at around the $1 to $5 million budget right now, and a lot of times you want to look even lower than that. His advice was basically to write a 1 or 2 location screenplay with around 5 to 10 characters, and get it out there to all these indie producers. He has a list that you can send him to through his, I think you have to pay him a little bit or something. But there's other ways to do it, of course, too, through querying or networking and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But if you can write those 3 of those good screenplays like that and just get them out there to the different producers and keep shipping them, he's like, those will sell, and that's awesome. Mine, like I said, is a little bit more expensive than some of those micro budget ones, but that's my goal in the next year is to write. Me and that guy P.T. Hilton are going to write probably 2 or 3 of those kind of small budget, micro budget screenplays and get them out there like that. So I think that's a good place to start because you're building credits. If they do well, if they get into film festivals and whatnot, you're building credibility. And then when you go and pitch other people, then you're a produced screenwriter. If they once the movie gets made, which fingers crossed. If you want to go the bigger route, that's a totally different. It's a big ball game. There's a website called donedealpro.com where everybody talks about this stuff in a forum, and it's very useful. Craig Mazin goes on there sometimes. He has a podcast called Script Notes that him and John August share, and they talk about advice on screenwriting. There's top contests, like the Nickel Fellowship, which is if you win that's awesome. You probably have a good chance of getting a manager or agent. And then there's this thing called the Blacklist 2.0 that a lot of people are using to put their screenplays up there and try to get attention.
You said it's the Blacklist 2.0?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a website. There was a thing called the Blacklist where all the I think it was all those managers and agents, whatever, were in town were talking about which screenplays were the best, and then they made a list out of it by Franklin Leonard coordinating this. He was a production guy working for Will Smith for a while, and now he's running this whole Blacklist thing. And now they made a website where you can go and host you put your website, your screenplay up there, and you can pay people to give it a review. And they're the people who work there. And if they give it a good enough review, then in theory, you'll get eyes on it. And they send out a newsletter talking about it and all that.
Sweet. I guess the only thing about that I have one question on is, when you're sending your scripts out or, these screenplays to people, what is it that you can do to kind of ensure that your writing and your ideas are protected in a sense? It's saying that somebody just can't kind of rip them off.
Yeah, I don't worry about that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's something to worry about. That's kind of, no offense to anybody who's worrying about that out there or asking the questions or anything, but it's kind of like a sign of an amateur. Like anybody who tells you an idea, but it's oh, but I want you to sign an NDA, or oh, I don't know if you might share this with people. It's come on, dude, I got 20,000 ideas that I've already written and that I want to write more, and so the chances of somebody liking your idea so much that they go steal it is kind of low. The chance of them writing the exact same one that you have in your mind is very, very, very low. Gotcha. And even if it hits the same main points, because so many stories follow the hero's journey, structure like Star Wars and whatnot. Even if it hits the same points, it's still not going to be the same story you would have told. So me and you could sit down with the exact same idea today and go write it, and it's all about the execution. So whoever gets the proper execution and then goes out there and networks and gets it sold, I mean, they should get the money. So if somebody steals my idea and they go make the money, that's cool. I hope you someday give me a high five, but I don't care.
That's actually a really good point about it. It's all about execution. I think that's exactly true.
So before we wrap up, Justin, I just want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about Land of Gods and that series, and tell people where they can buy it.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, so I have a website, justinsloanauthor.com, and people can actually get the first book free if they want to sign up for the newsletter there. And then I just send out little updates, like when I have new books coming out, or ask for people if they want to be beta readers and that stuff for new other books. I actually just finished book 3 in the series. So Land of Gods is book 1, Retribution Calls is book 2, and then book 3 is called Tears of Devotion. And it's this whole concept about a guy. It's based on the Peloponnesian War. I studied that in grad school and loved it, like the whole conflict between Athens and Sparta. You know, like the movie 300, but different.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's between Sparta and the Persians. But anyway, I love that whole time period. And I was like, so much fantasy is based on, medieval times in Europe. Why aren't there any cool fantasy books? And there are, actually. I found a few since. But at the time, I was like, why aren't there any cool fantasy books about the Peloponnesian War period? And so I did that. But I made up my own world and made it an actual fantasy book in the same way that, like, George Martin copied The Wars of the Roses. So it follows these two cousins who are both in love with the same girl, but one of them gets taken by this foreign military clan and forced to be a warrior, kind of like a child soldier type thing. And then, all kinds of chaos ensues, and he becomes there's this whole thing in the book where you can become a god, and it's always kind of questioned. I took the George Martin route for sure, where it's more about the people than it is about the magic, but there is a hint of magic there, and it doesn't play out very much until hints of it, a little teeny bit in book 1 if you're perceptive, a little bit more in book 2, and then book 3 comes out with throwing punches. So
nice.
Awesome. I do have one more question, because this is something that this is the question I wanted to ask you earlier, but I went blank for a second. So it kind of goes back to, when you worked on the Game of Thrones game, I guess when you are writing and stuff like that and you have the storyline kind of ironed out, what does the timeline look like for, as far as like when the idea is actually accepted and submitted for them to actually design the game around that? Like, how long does that process actually take for it to be, everything's kind of, sanded out and then they release it?
I don't actually know. Okay. I always kind of came into the phase where they're like, oh, we're ready to go with this. Like sometimes they wouldn't even announce it to us until like they're like sure that that they're going to roll with, because so many companies are pitching ideas, so many different IPs want their things made into awesome video games and whatnot. And so that's a toughie. I'd say me and PT, we're working on a novel right now. We just came up with the idea. We're actually going to do an unofficial Minecraft series because we thought that'd be fun. We both have kids and we love that idea. Mm-hmm. It's going to be very fantasy, very, kind of assassins, like pirate adventure stuff.
Nice.
From the idea we came up with it till we finished, it only took us 3 weeks. And we're going to come out with it probably in another 2 weeks after the cover's done.
Wow.
So, and video games move a little bit slower than that, of course. If you add in the art and all that, maybe a couple extra months. But then I would say like there's definitely that time period where people are all debating whether it's going to be feasible and what the best route to take with it are.
Definitely.
Cool. Well, Justin, thank you so much for being on the show today. And hopefully we can do this again.
Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate it. It was great talking with you guys. I'm going to be rich in about 2 years here, so have me back on when I'm rolling in the dough, and I'll share.
Nice.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. Definitely. And I just want to say, thanks again for your service, man. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. So
same here, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This is Cooley, and I'm chilling here with my buddy Rob. You remember Rob from Steambox. He's also our resident expert on video games, I would say, because like this guy is a true gamer, one of the last true gamers in the world, like that actually plays everything and doesn't have a specific genre that they adhere to. Like you talk to most people and they're just like, oh, I only do first person shooters, Call of Duty, bro. Right? But like, this guy plays literally, like if there's a game coming out, I'm like, yo, Rob, should I get it? And like he's just like, nah, bro, chill. Or like, yeah, get that shit. So like this is my guy that I go to. Say what's up, buddy.
What's up, buddy? I'm the guy. Steambox RI on social media. Some of my students, in a relevant topic, we made this arcade cabinet this year, super fresh. We made one at Noel Academy. It's crazy, man. They could put plants on one side and zombies on the other side of the cabinet, so it's themed and beautiful. Plays like 2,000 games. But today we were going to talk about a more specific video game topic, yeah?
Yeah, man. So we brought you in today as the video game expert, because E3 just happened.
So we want to break down some E3. Yeah, man, I've been paying attention. So I followed it pretty closely, and I feel like I've absorbed enough of it. I mean, where do we want to start? I mean, we got the big three. We got Xbox, we got PlayStation, we got Nintendo, we got like the third party support. We got PC. Where do we want to start?
Well, I mean, let's start with the conundrum, man. Like, there's a you agree when I say that word, right? Because there's this really weird thing that Xbox did this year where they're just like, because I'm always all about what Xbox presents, right?
Yep.
But this year we got this weird like, oh, we're gonna drop the One S.
Yeah.
And then they're also going to drop like this way
Scorpio.
superior system the next year. Like, why would I buy the One S?
Project Scorpio. I wish they learned their lesson, man, from previous E3s. I'm more of an Xbox guy. You were right. You nailed it on the head. I play all of them. I have a Wii. I have a PS4, which collects a whole lot of dust when there's not a new Uncharted game. Mm-hmm. When there is a new Uncharted game, it's fantastic for 10 hours, and then it goes back to collecting dust.
Oh, and then we'll talk about the Spider-Man game later because man. I'm really upset about not having a PS4 right now. But I'm not going to buy one for that. But
I feel
anyway.
you. You know, it's really like, and I'm going to come back to the Scorpio thing right now, but it really feels like PlayStation outside of Spider-Man, PlayStation's like DC and Xbox is like Marvel. They actually have attained a lot of the rights. This Phantom role-playing game that Marvel has and the Phantom PC game, DC Universe Online's been playable forever on PlayStation. So and the rabid fan base feels as such. Like a lot of the Marvel guys seem to be on Xbox. Coincidentally, this is not a perfect Venn diagram. So if you're listening and you're a Marvel guy who loves PlayStation, you're not weird.
Right.
But yeah, it really feels, anyway, I'm pointing at the split. It really feels like the fan base is kind of split and divided. But this year, things like you alluded to, things got a little trickier this year. This year, it looks like both systems had some really good showings. Whereas most years people are trying to argue over which one was better. PlayStation was way better. Oh, they dropped the mic and all this stuff.
Yeah.
This year, I mean, they both looked really fantastic. So this Project Scorpio that you talk about, right? First of all, Xbox has a new smaller system coming out this year. It's not for, like, if you have an Xbox, don't throw your Xbox in the trash and go get this new system. It basically does the same stuff. It plays video in 4K. Like, so if you have the 4K Blu-rays and a 4K TV, you know, it's cool for that. And it's a lot more lightweight and portable, which is cool. You know what I mean?
Well, interesting to me was the fact that there's a lack of a native Connect port.
Yeah, well,
so you have to buy a dongle for it. Like, it's kind of weird to me. Native
being the key word, right? So the Connect is available on PC as well, and there's a USB thing, and it's an extra thing. I think they might send it to you for free. They have not been clear about it yet, so we don't know. But the Connect itself is really weird, right? Like, they set it out to be an additional game playing device following the Wii and following the PlayStation Move and all this stuff. Everybody kind of took their own turn at kinesthetic gaming. But what it turns out to be is a fantastic input device. Like, I love walking in my house and saying Xbox on and my lights come on and the stereo comes on, right, and all this other stuff. So it's essential to me. Like, I love my Kinect. I need my Kinect. I don't want to dance in front of my Kinect. Some people do, and I think that's cool. Dance Central is dope. It's not for me, but it's absolutely dope. You know what I mean? But you're right. The Kinect has become kind of an essential device, not why they intended it to be. But now they're almost leaving it behind with the need of an additional USB dongle. So I find that interesting too.
Right.
But the Xbox One S is a great jumping on point. So if you don't have an Xbox or you need a new Xbox, now's the time. I mean, it's $299. It's small. It's affordable. It's pretty. Right. So that's cool. It's not for you or me, who we already have Xboxes. You know what I mean? But if we need a new one for any particular reason, or if I'm bringing one over to the school and I need one that's more portable, yeah, I'm looking at that one. I want that smaller one if I've got to take one around with me.
Right.
The big one's a beast. There have been video game systems that are smaller than the power brick for our current Xbox One.
Yeah, I agree.
So I've got a bit of a conspiracy theory with the Project Scorpio, because this is where they get into the mixed messaging, and this is where I was disappointed with Xbox. Now, usually I admit I'm probably a fanboy. I definitely lean more towards Xbox. To act like I love all my systems equally would be a lie, right? And I'm usually defending them after E3 because even though they have mixed messaging, they have the dope games that I want to play since always, right? Dead Rising, always. Like that's the one.
And the new Dead Rising looks sick.
And, oh my God, it looks so good.
Yeah.
Except I wonder who.
He's got Lucille, bro.
So it's yeah. It's years later, right? So who took the time, because this one's at Christmas, who took the time to decorate Christmas decorations around the mall? Like, I'm hoping some of these story elements get fleshed out. But here's the thing with Project Scorpio. Their messaging was it's just a lot more powerful, and it's going to be for 4K TVs to not only play the videos like the Xbox One S, but to also play video games in 4K on your 4K TVs. And that's all it's for. And they very specifically said that that's what it's for. You know, they talked about all the new teraflops and all this stuff and how it's a much more powerful system, the most powerful system imaginable.
It was like, why would you only use that for 4K TV?
Because they're lying.
Yeah.
Because they're lying. There are two truths here that are going to be moving forward. These aren't predictions. This is just what's going down. This is what's going to happen. They announced a while back that they've got a partnership with Oculus. And when they announced that partnership, we're like, oh, great. How can I use that with my Xbox One? And the answer was you could play the games in your Oculus virtual reality and it'll look like you're playing on a TV. That's what? What? Who wants that? Who wants to project an image, right? Like, that's what we have TVs for. What we have virtual reality for is to be in the game. So I've got an Oculus. And when I play Alien Isolation in the Oculus, it's horrifying because it feels like I'm in the ship. When the alien stabs me with its tail through my chest, I can look down and I can see the tail coming through my chest. Not like I'm looking at the TV and it gives me that impression. No, it gives you that sensation. So it's fantastic. But that's not what they were saying their partnership with Oculus was going to be about. Again, their claim was that using the Xbox One to play on the Oculus, it would be like you're looking at a TV in the Oculus. Again, a very different sensation.
Yeah, very silly as well.
Right.
Like, why would I wear a TV on my head?
Right.
When I have it in front of me.
Well, because what they don't want to tell you, and the sad truth is, they've been telling you that everything's going to be totally compatible and your games on Xbox One are going to play on the new Xbox, Scorpio. And they want you to believe that all the games designed for Scorpio, you'll be able to play on the Xbox. The reality is, and again, this is maybe a bit of a prediction, but I mean, obviously where they're going. The reality is when you plug a Scorpio in with the Oculus, they're going to give you that real virtual reality, right? And I know this because they've already announced Fallout for the Xbox Scorpio for the Oculus. They're not saying about the compatibility for the Xbox One, and hopefully they figure it out. But I think the truth is down the line, these are going to turn out to be half-truths with the compatibility. I think they're going to start with virtual reality. That's going to be exclusively for the Scorpio if you want that atmospheric presence. But also, I think the developers are going to look at it and not be able to resist the candy. I think they're going to say, hey, if we have all the more power here, why aren't we just tailoring our games to this Xbox Scorpio? You know what I mean?
Right.
Our Xbox One in 2 years' time, and I don't think in 2017, even if it comes out in 2017, I think late 2018, our Xbox Ones are going to start to feel like Xbox 360s. And that's a bit of a problem if they want people to continue to buy Xbox One. So I understand the deception in their marketing, but as I've followed video games since I was a young child, I get the feeling that this is where they're going with that.
So you think it's going to be like next gen system?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a next gen system that happens to play this gen's games. It's going to be a next gen system that happens in this gen. And to be honest, that's new and exciting. But how do you sell Xboxes right now saying, hey, you know what? I got a doper Xbox coming out next year.
Yeah, but they just did that.
Yeah.
Like, why would you do that? Like, that's the conundrum that I'm talking about. It's like you would announce it and you know that it's going to be way more powerful. You know that, like, anybody in their right mind knows that this is not going to be just to be on a 4K TV.
So let's talk about Sony for a second. And this is where they come into the mix. My one of my biggest problems with Sony is they've always been truly deceitful. And Xbox has been Xbox has been honest to a fault. They're saying, hey, this is what we're doing, blah, blah, blah. This is what it does. And Sony comes out and, with some fake footage of a game that never really comes out, or some fake footage of a game that comes out and doesn't look anything like what they show you at E3, like Killzone or the effects. I forgot what they call the effects. Every 4 years they show an old person and they show all the wrinkles on their face and it's like, this is what the new games are going to look like.
Right.
And they never do. Like, they showed that on the original PlayStation.
Yeah.
And then, they showed almost the same demo for the PlayStation 4. And the games still don't look like the one that they showed for the original PlayStation. They're so full of shit. So PlayStation has the PlayStation 4.5, right? Called Project Neo. And everybody expected that they were going to finally announce Project Neo. Xbox had their press conference before PlayStation. And I think that Xbox was afraid of their Project Neo announcement without them being able to announce a new system. So I do think PlayStation messed with Microsoft a little bit. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think they psyched them out a little bit, and it worked, because now Microsoft had a response to an announcement that was never made, and rightfully so. That announcement shouldn't have been made for Scorpio or Neo, because what they need to focus on is the games that we can play right now. But when both systems talked about the games that we can play, not right now, but for the upcoming year, some of that stuff looked amazing.
But I feel like it's too soon for any company to start talking about like a next gen console, though. You know what I mean? It's like that's like cell phone markets are starting to change. Like their model was like once every year you get a new cell phone, but cell phones are like $650 and there's no more subsidy. So now they're starting to look at maybe every 2 years, maybe every 3 years.
Or these leasing programs where you can just upgrade and bring the old one back.
Right, but you don't have those things in place for consoles. So like when you go to buy a console, you're dropping $500-$600 on a console, plus the cost of new games, plus the cost of another controller, blah, blah, blah. The cool thing is they say that the controllers that you have currently will work with the new console, and the games that you have currently will work. So as long as we're not tossing that stuff, that's a little bit of extra income that you can save. But still, the cost of a new console is $500-$600, so soon after just dropping that.
3 to 5. It was 600, right? When the last PlayStation came out and stuff like that. Sometimes, right off the bat when they come out, the 3DO, right? I was that idiot that bought the stupid 3DO. I mean, that was like $600 to $700. But yeah, these things are coming out for, the Xbox One is now 300, but we know it came out closer to 500, right?
How many years old is it? It's like 4 years old, right? Or 3?
3 probably. Yeah, something like that.
So 3 years old as opposed to what is usually a 7-year cycle, right?
I don't want to be that guy that's like, actually, but when it comes to no new system should be announcing, newer generations right now, Nintendo's so far behind that they are the only ones that should have had their press conference and said, hey, here's our new Nintendo, which everybody knows they're working on, right? Everybody knows, what's it called? The Nintendo, the Pokemon's Go. I forgot the new Nintendo name, but they've got the NX, right? So everybody knows they've got this NX. Nobody knows what it is. Is it a portable device? Is it like a cell phone? They say it's not really a replacement for the Wii U. So even their early words are, hey, we're not talking about a new like full system here. So what is it? And E3 is here right now. Now's the time to show us. Right. No, they showed us 2 things. So I can go over this list that PlayStation showed and that Xbox showed. Amazing things that got me excited for both systems. Nintendo showed me jack and shit, right?
Yeah.
So we talk about how we're comic fanboys. Now let's say that Nintendo was Marvel, right? And Nintendo shows out, hey, we've got Avengers coming out this year and we've got Spider-Man coming out. Then we're sold because we're the nerds who love that. And I know those Nintendo nerds and I love them. Some of my students like collect all these amiibos. They love Zelda. They love Mario every single time, right? So that's all they showed. They showed Pokemon and they showed Zelda.
Now, I haven't seen this, but I've heard that the Zelda that they showed looks a lot like one of the Bethesda games.
Yeah, as it should, right?
Like it's like Skyrim meets Zelda.
When Zelda first came out, that gold cartridge, it was a perfect game. And they didn't necessarily need to evolve it. They could have just given us like a new iteration with a new story and that kind of gameplay, but they didn't. Zelda was one of those first games to radically mature and radically grow. Right. So that second game came out and I didn't like it as much. It was this 2D side scrolling And I'm like, man, what happened? I like that overhead. I like the world that they gave me.
Right.
But I love that they had the guts to keep trying to evolve it. And they continued, all the way through like Ocarina of Time. And then they stopped. They played with cell shading and they played with the art direction, but they stopped evolving. What Zelda should be right now, I just played when I left the house, a game that I've been playing since October, The Witcher.
Oh, preach.
This is what Zelda should be, right? You change the characters in The Witcher and you're off on these really interesting quests.
So like Link should be like fucking bitches?
I don't think, I'm not saying there should be titties in the Zelda game, right? But certainly romance. You know what I mean? Certainly romance opportunities, and you have all these things. And I know that Nintendo mostly markets to kids, and you can still give us this quality gameplay of The Witcher with the name Zelda on it. You know what I mean? These big, beautiful boss battles and stuff like that. I'm not crapping on the new Zelda because it looks very, very pretty, but the last one was underwhelming, and it's been underwhelming for a short time now, and I just don't understand why it stopped maturing when it was the icon, when it was the one to mature.
Right.
It led the industry in maturation. I don't know what they're doing, man. Pokemon Go comes out next month. That looks really cool, right? I mean, it's going to get people moving. You don't have to be looking at your phone. You've got this little wristband that's going to vibrate when a Pokemon's popping up near you. It's like those random battles that I used to hate watching you play in Final Fantasy VII because I hated the random battles.
Yeah.
We're on a quest. We're going to do something, and then all of a sudden, like 3 troll jackasses show up, right? It's like real life. Like,
yeah.
We're trying to do something, then somebody's trolling us, like ruining our day, right? That's not fun to me. But with Pokemon, I would imagine that it could be fun if you're a Pokemon lover. I'm not, but my son is, and I get it. I get why Pokemon lovers would be excited for something like this. So there's a little bit of innovation happening there, but it's so sparse. Like, what the hell, Nintendo? Where's your new system?
Yeah, Nintendo's been like that for a while now, man. Like I gave up after the Wii.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Wii, and then when you saw the Wii U come out, and I'm like, okay, well, that's basically just the Wii with a touchpad.
Yeah,
and some HD support.
And
because like the Wii didn't even have HD support.
You got to follow the games. They tried some innovations. It didn't work, but they tried that like fancy controller and stuff like that. And everybody had a quick workaround for it. Like, hey, we'll just give you an app and you could do this stuff on your phone, everything that you could do on their controller, right?
Right.
But no new apps are coming out, right? Like, where's HBO Go and all this stuff for the Wii? All this stuff that we could do on the other systems.
Right.
So Wii is a nice system to accompany, like a nice child system to accompany your real systems.
Well, I appreciate Nintendo's stance on, hey, we are gaming first and foremost, and this is a gaming system.
But two games,
that's what we want. But yeah, can you give us like a new system to play games on? Like I want an innovative system that can do more than what you've given us,
and not recycled shit. And forgive me if you love Donkey Kong, and forgive me if you love Star Fox. And stuff. The new Star Fox it's not what it was, right? It looks like, actually, it's exactly what it was. It looks the same, has the same graphics as when I played it on GameCube. And we expect and deserve better at this point, and it's a shame.
Right. And here's the biggest thing is the friggin', like the level of talent that they have at Nintendo and like the level of work and love that they put into their stuff. Like, I mean, their games,
you can see it.
Their games are legit like the BMWs of, game development.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you said, like, I mean, you can only do so much with like, what is it? Like 10-year-old technology?
Yeah. But if you were talking about earlier, and we haven't even delved into it yet, but if you were talking earlier about, hey, this Spider-Man, it's going to make me look twice at a PlayStation, you know what I mean? The games ultimately are worth it, even if it's just 3 games, right? Like right now for PlayStation, it's just Uncharted. Any other game that you could point at, I could say, yeah, I played that on my PS3. You're going to be like, hey, The Last of Us. Yeah, that was dope on PS3. Like, what the?
I don't need the definitive version.
Right. But for the Wii, Bayonetta is amazing. Bayonetta is freaking amazing. I think that's starting to go multi-platform, but it had an exclusive for a long, long time on the Wii, and it's super dope. Right?
Platinum Games is they're dope.
They're doing something.
They're doing Spider-Man.
Yeah. Smash Brothers, right? Like, I'm not saying it's my cup of tea, but if it's your cup of tea, it's dope. It's worthwhile.
That's the only thing that's got me scratching my head about Spider-Man and wondering if it's going to be worth picking up, because I have the Platinum Games Transformers game that came out.
Yep.
And it looks beautiful, and it's absolutely like super fun to look at while you're playing, but it's the most repetitive shit that I've played in a very long time.
So they're distributing, right? Aren't they? Isn't it? It's the other people who made. It starts with an I, and they made other PlayStation games before. They're famous for making PlayStation games, even though
Insomniac.
Insomniac, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so that is different. It is. I'm sorry, it was Insomniac. I thought it was Platinum Games making the Spider-Man game. I'm wrong.
Yeah. So
That's why you're here.
So all right, so if we let's talk about Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
PlayStation comes out, and they usually, how it happens every year is I watch the PlayStation press conference. I can see through their garbage and bullshit, right? Last Guardian 7 years ago, which would have been amazing 7 years ago, right? I see through their bullshit every year, but then all my friends are like, oh, they just dropped the mic. Xbox sucks. I'm like, I have games to play. You have nothing. They showed you shit that might come out in 3 years from now. You know what I mean?
It's funny because the Marvel DC analogy that you made, like resonates right there, because if you think about it, like Marvel, as a Marvel fan, I've always been a Marvel fan, but I never hated on DC.
Right.
Like I always said, okay, well, maybe this is where DC, can pick up the ball and start running. Like I always want to give them a chance, and I'm always like, yeah, all right, come on, DC, let's do it, right? But then like the DC guys are always like, no, Marvel sucks.
Yeah.
It's
Fanboy.
Like, come on, man, really?
But maybe that's because, I mean, the grass is greener on this side, so we don't feel the need to poke fun at them. But yeah, that happens at the press conferences too, right? So for the past few years, Xbox is sticking to their script, right? For the past few years, while PlayStation is like making all these subtle jabs at Xbox during the not so subtle jabs at Xbox during the press conference.
Yeah, like Zack Snyder.
Right? Yeah, exactly like Zack Snyder. I think it fits perfectly. But this year for once, I didn't come away feeling like, oh, PlayStation, that sucks. You know what I mean? It's too bad.
Right.
It's too bad because as a PlayStation owner, I wanted more. This year, they delivered, right? So, except
DC delivered.
And DC's starting.
Yeah,
DC's starting to deliver.
It's like, I don't know. It's
same.
too fucking good. It's just such a good analogy.
You're right. You might be onto something because I've never seen PlayStation and DC in the same room together at the same time. You know what I mean? There's always like, I got to run to the phone booth, all kinds of weird stuff. All right, so they open up showing God of War. They open up with a ridiculous orchestra. And again, I was PlayStation hating right off the bat because they had this orchestra go on for the first 5 minutes of their press conference when I just want to see games. And the orchestra to me wasn't even good. Like, it was just like, oh my God, show me the games. But then they showed what was boldly a brand new looking God of War. Like, and I don't mean it was a new generation. I mean it looks like something new for the God of War series. A lot like Tomb Raider, no doubt, but it looks very different. It looks like you have a chance to empathize with Kratos more than ever before. You know what I mean? Especially if deity forbid.
It's got a Norse theme to it, right?
Yeah. Deity forbid if his son dies, right? Like the son who you're getting attached to early on in the demo. But it looks like a lot of fun. Maybe I'll miss. Maybe it won't be. Maybe it'll be a miss. But kudos for them for trying something new. But right now it looks awesome. But I mean, again, I love the old God of War, so we'll see because it's something a little.
Does it
different.
look like did they show gameplay?
Yeah.
Does it look like the gameplay is pretty much the same? Like
Not at all.
Tap tap tap.
No.
No.
No. It really looked like Tomb Raider style. You know what I mean? Imagine if Tomb Raider was ruthless and badass and chopping monsters in the face with a battle axe.
Okay.
Yeah. It was, and it was very pretty. Sony also did this really interesting thing. They threw me for a loop. They started out their press conference right after God of War. They showed this CG, and it was some biker dude, and he's out in the wilderness, and he's talking to somebody about something. I don't know what it was because I was totally bored at this point. Because what Sony was notorious for, and why I was a Sony hater, especially at the E3 conferences, was because they show you all of this CG stuff that looks beautiful that never comes to fruition. So they showed this trailer for something called Days Gone, And then Days Gone disappears, and they go on to their press conference and show you a whole bunch of other things. But when they finished their press conference, they were like, oh, now we want to come back to Days Gone. And the problem was, they showed me a trailer, and I'm like, it's not going to look like that. It's not going to play like that. Sony hater came out, right? But when he's playing, it looked like that. It was kind of like The Last of Us, you know what I mean? Very pretty as they're walking through. It almost looks like some CG. And he's going pretty fast, and he's looking for some dude. I think it was his brother or something, and they had some disagreement because he finds him. They start fighting, and next thing you know, World War Z movie style zombies are just like, there's hordes, and they're running and chasing them, and it's crazy. And it looked beautiful because this dude's running away from what I'm assuming is gameplay now, because now it looked like gameplay, and I'm starting to believe in this and say, hey, this looks playable, and it looks badass. Unlike Dead Rising, we had just seen Dead Rising and another zombie game at Microsoft we'll talk about in a bit. But unlike Dead Rising, this looked, way more realistic. It didn't look silly. It didn't look gamey. It looked like a completely different perspective. And this is from somebody who loves Dead Rising, right? Like, I need the new Dead Rising. But this was just a completely different, more realistic lens with World War Z style hordes of zombies chasing him. So these zombies chase him, and he runs under a thing, and they still go around it. He runs by, a train, and they ended up running like into the train from the other side where the door was closed. But as they compiled against the door, you could hear that starting to give in before they all came swarming out of the door. He goes into some barn and up the stairs, and they're chasing him, and he's turning around and shooting him as he runs. And it looked so exciting. It looked so amazing. And that, to me, and it wasn't God of War because I was thinking of all the Tomb Raider stuff. That, to me, was the first time in years that during a Sony press conference, I was like, yes, yes, this looks dope. And it does. And things looked really, really good during the Sony press conference. There were a couple of negatives, though. Oh, wait. Also, as we talked about earlier, Spider-Man, right? So they've got this exclusivity because they have the movie rights to Spider-Man, and Sony owns particular Spider-Man rights, not exclusively the rights to him in video games. And I couldn't break it down for you unless I had a flow chart, but they've got specific Spider-Man rights. And the new game looked really good. I wouldn't say Arkham City good, but it looked like they were like, hey, give us a game this level quality. Let's not just throw Spider-Man into some generic video game world. It looked really good. It looked like there were going to be some good stories coming out of the Spider-Man game as well. So the negatives, right?
Yeah.
Because they've got some. Final Fantasy 15. I'm not a Final Fantasy guy. I know you are. Were you going to chime in on this?
Well, Final Fantasy 7. I'm a Final Fantasy 7 guy.
All right.
Every other Final Fantasy
fair.
I played, I've hated. I wouldn't say hate it, but it just like it didn't live up to Final Fantasy VII, and I just stopped playing in the middle of it.
When people in the past few years, when they said they're a PlayStation fan, like what would earn the right to me? Like to me, what would make sense is if they said, "Hey, I love role playing games, and PlayStation has Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts. All of these games are coming out. Again, they still haven't, right? So if I bought a PlayStation way back when, and I'm holding my breath for those games, I died." You know what I mean? Like I'm the zombie now, right? But they finally showed gameplay for Final Fantasy 15. They finally and it just didn't look good. They finally showed gameplay for The Last Guardian. No, they've shown gameplay for The Last Guardian for the past 7 years, but they finally put a release date out. It's coming out this October, and the world is going to attack Sony if Sony doesn't actually put that out in October. It still looks like a game to me that 7 years ago would have been magnificent. I love that developer, and I love those games on PlayStation.
Right.
From what was it before? There was the one where Shadow of the Colossus, right? And the one before that where the kid was talking some weird French to a shadow.
Echo or Eco?
Eco, yeah. Yep. And those are beautiful games. I love them. So I can't wait to try this, but at the same time, it does look dated right now. It looks like a game that, they put some polish on a 7-year-old game is what it looks like.
Right.
And I think that's what they did because those developers left and they picked up where they left off. And I think they're taking a 7-year-old game and saying, hey, the community wants this really bad. Let's give it to them.
Well, that's the thing. Like I think a lot of every system's doing it. I mean, like they have these games
No doubt.
Like, you can't get much better than what you're making now. You know what I mean? And now it's not a matter of making these games better. It's a matter of like innovating and coming out with something new.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're not coming out with something new, then everything that you're coming out with is just a rehash of something that came before. And it's stuff that it basically just building on old engines. And it's like you said, it's not new. It's just polishing some old stuff, you know?
Well, that's my problem with Sony in general. They don't support the stuff that they do come out with, right? Like the Move and the PlayStation Eye. So people crack all the time on the Xbox One camera, right? The Kinect.
Right.
I use that shit. I use that shit a lot. I also have the PlayStation Eye, and I do not use it. It does nothing for me. It's a relic of the past. It's not even a relic of the past. It's a relic of never, right? So is the Move. I've got the Move, too. It's a relic of never. That's never been a thing. It's something that they sold me and I bought because I'm an idiot who buys everything from way back when Nintendo had the Virtual Boy. It was like an Oculus Rift that looked at Pong, right? That's what the Virtual Boy was.
No, it's what Xbox is saying the Oculus Rift is going to be used for.
But speaking of, this is another thing from the conference, right? Where the fuck was the Vita, right? That's another thing they sold me because I found a fantastic deal on the Vita, or so I thought. And then I was like, oh, it would be cool if I had games for this thing. And I looked through the market. There's nothing, right? Like, unless you want to play Hot Shots Golf again and again and again. Or again, though, right? Again, PlayStation has an audience. If you're that Final Fantasy guy, if you're waiting for Kingdom Hearts still, I hope you're not holding your breath. But if you're that guy, then Persona and stuff like that on the Vita was really cool, but they didn't show you shit during E3. And I don't mean during their conference, because Nintendo only showed 2 things during their conference, but then they also had all these other cool games, right? PlayStation, not only during their conference, but during E3 showed nothing for the Vita. Nothing. And that was sad. So there was zero support for that. There's another what the fuck moment for PlayStation. They have Hideo Kojima, right? Who's world-renowned. He's famous as a game developer. People love him. And I think he's one of those people who people love him for something that he did 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Because the last time he made something that I thought was super fantastic was Metal Gear Solid 2, right? On the PlayStation. I thought that was amazing and innovative, and I thought Part 3 was an extension of Part 2, and so on. And the last one was pretty cool. I got bored of it, but it was pretty cool. But again, it felt like an extension. They were talking about how it's going to be.
The first one was the best.
The Nintendo one?
No, I mean
the 2, right? The first
Metal Gear Solid.
The first, right? That was Metal Gear Solid, right? Yeah.
That one where he's like, you know, walking around with the box over his head.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like because. And the thing is, it's like you said. So it's like you said, you're just polishing shit that came before.
I don't want to be blasphemous. He deserves all the respect that he gets for that. But if he's putting out stuff now, I don't know why we'd give him the benefit of the doubt that something that he's going to do in 2016 is going to be amazing. Like if Stan Lee's a hero of mine. I love Stan Lee. Stan Lee created a universe that I absolutely love. Right? And of course he co-created it, and anybody who wants to nitpick deserves that right? With Kirby and others, right? But if Stan Lee wrote a comic book today, the community would be like, yeah, Stan Lee writing a new comic book, and he does this from time to time. But to expect the same level of quality from the universe that he built years and years ago is a stretch. So Kojima, on his name alone, and on Norman Reedus' name, Daryl Dixon from The Walking Dead, and more famously to me in Boondocks, right? He showed Norman Reedus naked on a beach with ghosts around him and a baby in his hand, and the baby disappears and turned to sand, and the world starts getting weird around him on the beach. It was just very gray. They don't really show you anything. You don't know who he's fighting. You don't know who he is. Is he the protagonist? Is he an antagonist? Is he even in the game? Again, one of those no gameplay things where it's because it's Kojima, we should just expect absolute greatness. And I do not give them the benefit of the doubt. Like, what the fuck is this? They just showed me some weird shit, and the crowd did the thing that I was mad at them for previous years with, oh, mic drop, Kojima, Norman Reedus, happened. It's a thing. It's what thing, though? What the fuck is it? Is it even a game? Nobody knows. It was another what the fuck moment in an otherwise, uncharacteristically for me, excellent PlayStation press conference. So they showed some other things. This I think is kind of weird. They showed their VR, right? So when Oculus came out and all these other people, Sony wants to be right there and sell me some other bullshit that I'll buy, like the Vita, like the Move, like other things in the past, that I'll probably wear a couple of times on my head and be like, yeah, that was cool, and then never wear it again, right? And this is a very expensive one. So they showed their VR, and they showed they have some Star Wars stuff, like a Battlefront. The problem is these things look like tech demos, and for a lot of the times on Oculus it's free, and it's a tech demo, and I can go on my computer and I can play some Oculus stuff, and it's 20 minutes long, and it's cool, and then I'm done. That's what the Star Wars looked like. It looked like it's going to be a Star Wars tech demo kind of thing. I don't think they have any intentions of making a full fleshed out game of it. And they showed a lot of other things like that. But one of them, two of them stood out. The first one is Rocksteady is working with them. So you've played some Rocksteady games, right?
Yeah, that's the Arkham stuff.
Right. And we like it, right?
Yeah.
Except for when Rocksteady didn't develop it, like their year off, and they wanted to put out a new game, so they had another developer come in and make their, use that franchise.
Yeah, it was just so weird.
Yeah, it
just takes you right out of the whole.
Well, Call of Duty does it too,
Yeah.
right? And it's so every other year we were getting a shit Call of Duty game.
Yeah, I'm glad they put the kibosh on that though.
Who, Call of Duty?
No.
Oh, yeah, Rocksteady, right? Because Call of Duty still does it. They have 3 now. They haven't doubled down; they've tripled down.
Yeah, I think that Arkham Origins failed, and then
yeah.
And then they were just like, okay, well, maybe we can't.
It was just a very vanilla game. It was a game that you play, and it's okay. It's not bad, but it wasn't good.
It didn't have the story elements that the other ones did.
So they're developing for the Sony VR, and they have a Batman game, and the whole thing is like, it's when you put on the PlayStation VR onto your face, they want you to feel like you're putting the Batman cowl on your face, right? So, and they're developing it, and they showed us very little. But now, as opposed to Kojima. Now, these are games, this is a developer that I've played with in the past year. So now I'm like, okay, because I've seen them do some Batman stuff, and I've seen it be very cool. And if I can make their promise, they actually told me what it is. If they come through on their promise and I can actually feel like Batman, I might want to be down with that.
Are they developing a new game from the ground up, or is this going to be a remake of the original Arkham? Only in VR.
The only way for us to know that at this point, because there's little bits online of people's experiences, but they didn't show it, right? So they showed a little tiny, they showed nothing that you can really get a measure from, right? But there is good news. The PlayStation VR, and I can't believe I'm plugging PlayStation stuff, right? But the PlayStation VR is going on tour starting, guess when? Today, right? Today, the PlayStation VR is going on tour in GameStops and Best Buys. I already checked our map. It's not here.
Okay.
It's not where we are, where we're doing this cast from in Rhode Island. It's not here.
No VR where we are.
Right. No VR where I like it. You're good. That was fast.
Thank you. That's why I'm in this business.
But they have stuff, and it's touring, and it's out there near you. And I guess the only way to find out is to put it on and really experience it for yourself. And I can't wait to do that. And because I hope I can put it on and be like, this sucks. And the reason I say that is not because I'm a Sony hater, because the reason I say that is it'll save me like $500. It'll save me $500 if I can put it on and be like, oh yeah, I'm all done with that. They also had a game called Horizon, which looks pretty cool. It looks like questing through a Witcher-ish world, steampunky RPG with a character who's reminiscent of what was on the PlayStation 2 or 3. They had a redhead character in a God of War like game. Do you remember this game?
I do. That was it sort of I think it was sort of Destiny or something like that. No, that's the
I forget the name of the game, but
I know what you're talking about.
But we get a hot ginger running around through
that was on PlayStation.
Yeah.
It was on PlayStation 3? Yeah, PlayStation 3.
It was one of the launch titles.
Yeah.
Definitely God of War ripoff, like trying to capitalize on their God of War stuff. It looks like a character like her.
It was only like 20 minutes long.
Running around it was very short.
Yeah.
Running around in a steampunk world with steampunk dinosaur robots and stuff. I don't understand why, but it looked cool. It looked like something I'd want to play. Anyway, my whole point is, it looked really, it looked solid. PlayStation had a solid effort. They didn't show the Neo. They totally psyched out Microsoft and made Microsoft show their hand, and then PlayStation showed nothing, right?
And now they're going to go back to the drawing board and try and outdo it, I bet.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's smart.
Yeah.
That's smart. That's good for them. They get to see, because the Scorpio stuff looked really strong, and now PlayStation, before having announced anything, can look at that and say, all right, we're gonna have to top that, which is important. You know what I mean?
So one thing I will say about PlayStation though is where the fuck is No Man's Sky?
Yes, it's super delayed. That's a good question. It's super delayed. It's supposed to be out. It's supposed to be out later this summer, but we'll see. I'm starting to not believe it. And in the meantime,
because that's like the Rocky Marciano for.
Yeah, it looked incredible.
Right? That's the Rocky Marciano.
It looked incredible
for
and wondrous and all this stuff. But now there's a bit of that. It seems like other people took the hint and said, hey, yeah, that's really cool. So now other people are putting that sense of wonder and exploration, especially into space, in their games. So we talked about Nintendo. We talked about Sony. And some of these games, and I know this is multi-platform, Mass Effect, right? Like Mass Effect looks like they're putting some of those elements, right? Mass Effect looks like the new Mass Effect is going to focus a lot more on exploration, which seems really, really cool to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm a huge Mass Effect fan. It's the first time that I really got into RPGs.
But you're not really a huge exploration fan, though.
You would think. Yeah, I mean, you would think. And this has been typically true, but I love... So this term, role-playing, right? I kind of don't get it when it's tabletop cards and a couple of other things, as much as I love Gwent. I don't love it when it's these tabletop games, and I couldn't get into Dungeons and Dragons, even though that's true role playing, right? Because you're talking about playing a role. But I do like that concept so much. I love the concept. I love being able to pick up my game controller and feel like I'm the captain of this ship. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm making these decisions with these people.
I feel like you have like you're one of these types that you actually need a gateway to something. Like you've heard the term gateway drug, where you take this drug and it leads you to this other drug. Like I think like just Gwent, for example, like you would never play a card game like Magic or Pokemon or any of that shit, like where you sit across from somebody and you're putting cards on the table, but you play Witcher. And
it forced
Gwent
me
is in Witcher.
Goddamn Witcher!
Now you want to play Gwent?
Fuck you,
right?
Witcher! You made me play Gwent. You made me play Gwent.
I just think it's funny.
You put the name of my hero's first girlfriend and you added a fucking T so that they don't sue you, and you got Gwent, right? So yeah, I got into Gwent and I'm kind of addicted. I'm walking around this stupid Witcher world, and then I go up to, and people are like, "Hey, I got goods. What do you want?" I'm at a whorehouse, right? And they're like, "Hey, we've got whores all around here. You like a redhead or what?" And I'm like, "I reckon I'll play you in some Gwent." Like, that's what I want. That's what I truly crave. I want Gwent. Yeah, man. Gwent, by the way, has a new standalone game, which ought to be pretty cool. So now they're making a just Gwent game. So you take the Witcher out of it, you take all this other stuff, and now that they've given me their gateway, now I want to play fucking Gwent.
Yeah.
Is
it going to be like a digital only, or is it going to be something that you have to buy in stores?
It's Xbox and PC. So another thing that Xbox did was really, really cool. And this is from our childhood, is the idea of being able to play together, right? Because we've always had different systems. We've had Sega and Nintendo, and it sucked that you had this one and I had this one. Well, it didn't matter with limited internet connectivity or no internet connectivity. But especially when internet and the lobbying systems were introduced and we can actually play together online, it sucked when we had different systems, when we had all of these different things going on. Now, you're able to play, the PC gamers can play with Xbox with a lot of the new games. They're making them from the ground up like that. So the new Forza, when Forza comes out, which looks amazing, and I'm an adult, so when I want to drive, I can go out and drive a real car. I can go out and drive my motorcycle. But still, Forza's always been amazing. Who thought that they'd be able to take that from Gran Turismo? Because Gran Turismo was the king of the crop, could never be beaten. And then Forza came along and was so beautiful. And I'm making the cars, customizing them in ways that you can't do in other games.
Well, the problem with Gran Turismo is that they don't come out with it anymore.
Right. It's more vaporware from Sony. I know. forgive me for being as bitter as Sony.
I feel like if they
though.
developed it and put it out, it would be freaking great because Gran Turismo was like one of my favorite games like ever.
But it won't. But they have, and it's sparse, like you say. But they have, and it's not touching the Forza of the same generations. Like,
right.
Forza's just taken over.
Oh,
Forza's
they have come out with it.
Yeah, there was a Gran Turismo 2 years ago, I think, and there was a Forza out 2 years ago, and it was still
on PlayStation 4.
Yeah, don't make me lie.
Okay.
Don't make me lie. I don't know.
All right.
But Forza's amazing, man. I want to go and customize the cars. But now in this demo, and they're playing it on the screen.
I still have photos of like some of my old cars that I customized.
Oh man,
in Forza.
I put a picture of Ernesto Che Guevara on a car, and it looked like the T-shirts.
Do you remember my Powers car?
No, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna pull it up.
You're asking me memory questions, man. I'm Dory. I'm Dory. I made so many cars, Herbie and all this other stuff, but the one that always sticks out to me is from a Robot Chicken sketch where they had Admiral Akbar cereal, and he's popping out of the cereal going, "It's a trap." So I put the cereal box in the cereal on a car, and the car looked like an advertisement for a real world cereal, Admiral Akbar cereal, and it was a beautiful car. I definitely still have pictures of that too. So yeah, man. So you're able to now play Forza Motorsports, and with people who are playing on PC at the same time as the Xbox, you can play in the same world. They showed people going off these little. There was a little hill off the side of one of the roads, and they show one of the guys kind of get bumped up on the hill, and he did a barrel roll in a way that looked legitimate. He was in a dune buggy, right? The whole thing takes place in Australia now, but it looked legit and dope. Like, it was like, this dude just did a barrel roll. It was crazy. They did these races. There was one in the last game where you're racing against planes, which is kind of stupid, right? Like, you're racing against, obviously the planes are going to win, but the planes had to take a certain route. So if you're racing and you're up to where you should be, you see the plane every now and then kind of intersecting with you, and it was really cool. In this one, somebody tries to cheat, and they're in their Jeep, and a helicopter comes and picks up the Jeep and is taking the Jeep to the finish line, and you have to haul ass to the finish line and get there ahead of the helicopter that's carrying the Jeep. And the dude's all like hanging out of the Jeep, giving you the finger the whole way and stuff, while you're tearing ass through Australia. It looked like so much fun that that Powers car is nice. I need the new Forza, man. I need the new Forza. It's just a beautiful game that's undeniable. This guy is showing me his Powers car right now, and I do remember it, and it is beautiful. It is beautiful. It looks like it was made to be, by the game developers in the game. It looks like DLC. Like, hey, you want to download this Forza car? With Powers. Powers is a series. It's a comic series written by Brian Michael Bendis, and it's beautiful. He's got Autobot cars. He's got a bunch of others. Yeah, man, it's beautiful. And they did this other cool thing that the current generation Xbox doesn't do for some reason, although the new firmware is going to let you do it. Play music while you're playing the games, and you could hear near field, like, other people's car. If another car is passing you and it was close, and this is in the early Forza games, so I would play really loud the music that accompanies the car, right? So as I'm driving my Herbie Love Bug past people, you'd hear doo 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 doo. You'd hear the A-Team theme and shit when I had my A-Team car, not a van, but it was as close as I could get. And all this other stuff, man. It was good times.
Nice.
You talked about how I got gatewayed into role-playing games.
Yeah.
There's one that I didn't, and maybe I can now. Maybe I've evolved with The Witcher, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know Mass Effect had gotten me to a point where I could play Dragon Age and The Witcher and ended up loving them, where I hadn't liked Dragon Age before, but I've evolved because I had this gateway, like you mentioned. When Skyrim came out, I knew Skyrim was dope. I could tell that it's amazing. I get why everybody loved it. It wasn't for me, right? Early on in the game, I went into the first village. I killed a chicken, and the whole village was like, "Fuck you for killing our chicken!" And the whole village kicking my ass. I'm a level 0, right?
Yeah.
So I'm getting my ass kicked by this whole village, and for some reason, the game saved there. I might have done it. I might have done a manual save. I don't remember. But now, whenever I played Skyrim, I would open up the game, and there'd be a whole village kicking my ass. Right? and I was just like, no, I don't have time for this shit. Fuck this shit. But Skyrim, they have announced that they're doing a remaster of Skyrim for
Bethesda
the Xbox One. Yeah.
Bethesda won E3 for me.
Yeah.
Like, I think as soon as I saw Bethesda's like panel, right?
Who knew?
I didn't even bother watching the rest of E3 because, like, to me, nothing was going to top that. Like, that was
Last year they put out Wolfenstein. That should be a dead IP.
right.
Right? It was great early on PCs when I played the first one on a PC. It was dope. It was this corridor shooter, just like their Doom was, right? So who knew that they could resurrect Wolfenstein and make that a fun game?
Doom.
It sounds like a stupid concept. And then Doom just came out.
Let's talk about Doom for a second. Look, we talked about how like all they did was like how a lot of like developers do is like polish old stuff.
Yeah.
That's basically what they did with this, and it's amazing.
It's so fun.
It's like it's legit Doom.
It's
like,
the same shit that we played
Doom.
before.
Yeah.
But it's so fun. They made it's fun. They brought it back and it's fun. And the same thing with Wolfenstein. And now, so we're like, hey, it's a logic equation, right? If they could do Wolfenstein and make it fun, and then next year they could do Doom and make it fun. So what's next year going to be?
Quake.
So when they showed Quake, I'm having all these memories of Quake's a stupid game.
It is.
You're a big stupid Todd McFarlane hulking character, or not Todd McFarlane. Who's the one who draws the hulking?
Rob Liefeld.
Rob Liefeld-ish hulking character. Forgive us for the Deadpool thing if that comes to mind, but all the other Liefeld characters are these giant brutes, right? So it's this Liefeld hulking character. All these Liefeld hulking characters in this game who look like they're straight out of Gears of War. They also shoot a new Gears of War. All these giant characters, but it was still like it moved so fast and it was so fun to shoot people and bounce off the airlifts and all this stuff. Yeah, I want to play some Quake because they showed me that they can make Wolfenstein fun and they can make Doom fun. I believe that they can make Quake fun, and I can't wait.
I was hoping for Unreal.
Yeah.
Because Unreal would have been a lot of fun, man. But I'll settle for Quake now and hopefully get Unreal later on.
Now we know the same first-person shooter team is going to make Unreal next year. That's going to be their...
And this is coming from the guy who hates first-person shooters. I hate them.
It's true. He does.
And I'm sold on Doom. I've been playing Doom since it came out. And I play it a little bit at a time, but I've been rocking it. I love it.
Yeah. Rehash stuff, right? So if these things are rehashed, Fallout on virtual reality. I mentioned that earlier. Like, that's where they're going with the Oculus stuff.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as it's not just playing it on a TV that's right in front of my face, I want to be in it. So
here's another one. It was a shitty $10 game that I absolutely loved. State of Decay, right? Came out on the 360. And
there's a definitive edition on
right
on Xbox Live right now.
Yep. It looked last gen, right? It looked like early 360 stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Third person, you're running around, there's zombies chasing you. It wasn't pretty, but it was so much fun to have the RPG elements where you're questing, you're going to these different houses and looting, and you're getting the necessary materials to keep your community alive, and you're rebuilding communities, and you're moving your community around to a better space where you're further away from zombies and stuff.
How is it now?
Different kinds of zombies. It's exactly what they wanted that one to be, and they never got around to what they targeted that one to be. They wanted it to be an MMO. They wanted it to be a massively multiplayer online game, right?
So is it like 7 Days to Die?
Well, they changed their mind because the community said, hey, instead of that, what we wish this one is co-op. We wish that we can have all our friends in here playing with us. So now, instead of being an MMO against the world, now you're questing with your friends. So me and you can get together and we can get our friends together and we can all have one community and go out in different directions and do things. Or I can drive the car while you loot the house and I'm doing donuts in the front yard, attracting zombies so I can hit them with the car. Like, so many different possibilities.
Can communities meet each other? And
that I don't know. They didn't give a lot of details, but they were so specific. I would tend to think no. I would tend to think that they would sell it as an MMO if it was an MMO. But I believe that it's going to be a 4-player, like an RPG-ish Left 4 Dead. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like a slower RPG-ish Left 4 Dead. I'm sold. I'm absolutely sold.
7 Days to Die, on the other hand, is the other way around. It is an MMO.
Yeah.
And that is one that I'm actually looking forward to because of the idea that you can actually get a community and build a community and stuff like that. And you would run into other communities and it'd be a lot like Walking Dead.
Yep.
like the television show. Like, I mean, you don't know if you're going to be able to trust these people. You may be able to trust them, you may not. And, you know, you still have the element of danger from the zombies as well.
So here's where, and they had a lot of exclusive stuff. They had these controllers that you can customize and make them your own with 3 million different combination possibilities. They had, what am I forgetting? Halo Wars. They showed off the new Halo Wars, and I loved the previous Halo Wars. It was a little game that it's a strategy, it's a strategy game. Not a lot of people like those. I'm one of those people who don't really like them, but I love Halo. That was my gateway.
Right.
And I ended up loving it. So I'm excited about that. They've got Tekken 7, but when we're talking about exclusives from Microsoft, then that's where they've always really won me over. The games that I could play on Xbox and nowhere else. But when we're talking about Microsoft exclusives, and we're talking about what you just mentioned, the idea of coming up on these other people and you're suspicious, you don't know how to feel about them. Finally, Rare is back with something that excites me for the first time in forever, right? Rare are the people that made GoldenEye and Perfect Dark and all these really cool games before, Banjo-Kazooie and all this stuff, Conquer, right?
Right.
Their new game is Sea of Thieves. In Sea of Thieves, you and I we get a ship, right? We're on our little pirate ship, and we go out and try to discover the world. Again, probably influenced by, last year's PlayStation presentation when they showed, us going through space and exploring stuff. We're able to go and explore the world as pirates, right? We go and get beer, right? We go for booty. We go for all this other stuff. It looks amazing, but here's the thing. We need to use teamwork. Like, you've seen pirate movies and stuff. There's somebody on the front of the bow that's telling you where to go. You know why? Because if I'm the captain, I've got these big sails in front of me, and I can't see shit. So, like, you have to tell me, go left, go right. You have
right.
And hopefully you have more people, because we have a lot of shit to do. We got to get the sails up. We got to put the sails down. We got to get the anchor up and all this stuff. And I watched video of people playing that, and it looked like so much fun, because they ran up on another. This is an MMO. They ran up on another pirate ship, and you don't know what to think. Are these pirates going to be cool? It's kind of like
who's making it?
The Assassin's Creed Rare, right?
All right.
So it's just beautiful and incredible, and it looks like it's going to be so much fun. That really brought that sense of wonder that I truly like.
Nice.
I don't know where they had Gears of War. I'm probably not speaking on Gears of War so much because I'm okay with it. I'll probably buy it, probably play it, and then be like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not for the big hulking guys tearing things in half.
Well, they gotta come with something new for it. I mean, it can't just be another duck and cover shooter.
It looks
on rails.
It looks like another on rails duck and cover shooter. It's a little prettier.
And that's the thing. Like, I'm not okay with that, so I probably won't get it.
I'm not mad at it, but I'm not happy with it either. Like, I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It didn't evolve, unlike God of War, right? Where it's a whole new engine and a whole new beast. The saddest thing for me was, where the fuck was Cuphead? Last year they showed me this beautiful game that looked like an old Disney animation, right? Like the old Mickey Mouse, Steamboat Willie kind of thing. And you're this Cuphead guy, and you're going around shooting things out of your finger, and you run up on a big dandelion that's going to kick your ass and stuff. And the animation looks so beautiful, and it looks so wonderful. They showed it again this year, but why aren't I playing it already? It looks simple enough. It's a 2D fucking shooter. You know what I mean? That my students could make it. Theirs is beautiful. Cuphead is beautiful. My students can't make Cuphead necessarily, but for a 2D shooter, why aren't I playing this thing already? Why is it? They must have been developing it way before last year's E3. So where the fuck is it?
Right. They take their time with stuff, man. It's like, I understand that, but I hate today's information era where we find out about stuff like way before it's ready to be announced, right? And like, people feel pressured to announce things and keep people interested and stuff like that. And it's like, don't announce something until you're like at least close to releasing it, because now I want it.
Right. Right.
You know, I want it now. I want it when you announce it. And I know already that I'm going to have to wait a year. But I mean, if you're going to keep delaying it and delaying it and delaying it, now I'm just not interested anymore.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm going to give you 5 more. Okay.
Yeah.
Titanfall 2. It has a campaign mode, which looks cool with the Titan.
So a finished game.
Yeah. So
great.
So a finished game. I know a lot of people that wouldn't that don't give a shit. They just want the ability to play a campaign, even though they're probably not gonna.
Like, I love Titanfall.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I still play it from time to time. I wanted a campaign really bad.
There were some cool new elements where I can't honestly say it looks like more of the same, but it doesn't look like that much of a stretch. It looks like they added a campaign mode and some cool new features. There was a great thing where dude ejected from his Titan, battle hooked, what do you call that, grappling hooked to another player, an enemy player, and came up to that dude and killed him using the battle hook all midair, all very fast. That was very cool. I'm probably going to play it. I hope it's better than it came across to me.
I want a transformable mech.
People loved it. That was Microsoft's, and it wasn't Microsoft. That was the moment during the EA's conference that everybody was like, "Oh, mic drop," and I was like, "Really? I don't know."
I want a transformable mech.
Yeah, I want that too. I want customizable mechs so that we can make them look like however we want them. to
like
look.
they did with what was it called? The From Software one.
I want it to be like Forza level customizable.
Do you remember From Software
Not
had a
really.
game? It was like a mech game. I can't remember the name of it though.
Is that not the other Kojima?
No,
Because he had one too.
no. Matter of fact, you and I played this game a lot.
Watch Dogs 2 looked really good. Watch Dogs 2 looked really good, and that does look progressive from the last one. So I can't wait. Although the last one looked really good, and when I got into it, it was kind of meh. So hopefully Watch Dogs 2 is amazing. Injustice, right? Injustice looked really like Injustice. It looked like a Mortal Kombat clone that is a little bit soulless, but you get to play with your favorite DC heroes. Battlefield 1 looked amazing. Dishonored 2 looked amazing. So check these games out. I mean, they looked really fun. I wasn't really into Dishonored, but this one looked great. I got to play at PAX. Armored Core. Yeah. Oh, I do remember that. At PAX, I got to play We Happy Few, which looks kind of like a BioShock-ish game, which is dope. So here's my last couple. South Park Fractured Butthole.
Nice.
I fucking love it. If you didn't play the last South Park game, it was amazing. It's so adult. Don't play with kids in the room, but it's so fucking good. It was. If people called it the game of the year, I'd be like, yep. They showed a new Prey. Okay. So here's the thing, right? When it comes to Ghost Recon, given the current political climate, I don't want to play a cop going into. I'm a Latino. I don't want to play a cop going into Mexico killing Latinos who you suspect of being drug lords and stuff. I think it's a little. Here's a weird thing, right? We had an awful tragedy this weekend with one of the biggest mass murders with guns, and I understand they're doing what they got to do. It must have been a hard spot for all of these press conferences to be like, "Hey, let's have a moment of silence for all these people that died yesterday due to gun violence." Have your moment of silence, and then it's like, on to gun violence. Let's show you all our really cool gun violent games. It must have been a tough spot for them to be into, but I get it. So I want to give you one more. It's really three more, but I can wrap it up into one package. I feel a little. The Lego games are always adorable and they're always fun, and I always buy them. But I'm no longer having fun with them because it's the same old shit. You break bricks, you build new bricks, but then you go to the next cute little fun scene where they make a cute parody of properties that we love. They are doing that with the new Star Wars, which the demo's already out for, and I played Star Wars The Force Awakens on Lego, and it was very cute and fun, but I've already played. They literally put me to sleep. I feel very exhausted when I'm playing these games because I've done them before. And their Lego Dimensions, they've got Goonies, A-Team, all this other stuff, Gremlins. You can play as all these properties in the game. I love that, but the gameplay is very stale to me. And Minecraft has made it so that now you can play Minecraft together. Doesn't matter what device you're playing on. So I can play on my tablet if you're playing on your PC or Xbox or whatever, and we can play together, which is really cool. There's so much more. I want to thank you for having me here. If you ever want to talk video games again, I want to process a lot more of this stuff with you. Hit me up.
Yeah, man, we can definitely get together maybe next week.
Let me know what's up.
Yeah, we can do like a part 2.
I think after Japan, right? I'm taking my students to Japan. After Japan, we can do part 2.
Dude, yeah.
Yeah, so next week I'm in Denver, and then I'm in Japan, and then...
Yeah, and in Japan you get to... Because, like, let's be real. I mean, remember, like, the first PlayStation that we had?
Yeah.
Yeah, we both got that
bootleg,
that Japanese
the
system.
Yeah. We needed our fix, right?
Yeah.
Talk about gateway.
So we had it way before, like, it actually came out in the States.
My student, Julie Cheeks, has got us going to the Square Enix Cafe for breakfast where they have all Square Enix based stuff. These are the people that make Final Fantasy and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to be able to buy food and other items based on all their games, which is going to be kind of cool.
Nice.
We're having a lot of fun. Yeah.
Nice. Make sure you take some pictures. Of course you will. I don't think I have to tell you that. That was really silly of me.
Steambox RI on Facebook, Twitter,
Hey,
the
make
universe.
sure you take photos when you go to Japan.
Steamboxri.com. You'll be able to see all these photos. All my students are making documentaries. It's going to be a good time.
Just remember when you're taking photos that I'm the one that reminded you.
How do I take a photo again? Is it the button? Hey, yeah, you got to press the button. The button. Oh, the one button on this fucking device? That's the button to press?
Yeah. But yeah, man, yeah, have fun with that, and I definitely want to see everything. And dude, anything that is like Robotech related, which would be Macross out there.
We're going to Gundam front.
Like Macross, Mus Beta,
Yep.
right? Those two in particular. If you see anything, let me know. I will Square Cash you the money.
Yep.
Right? And just pick that shit up for me.
All right.
Because like those are my two favorite franchises, and you know, if you got access to like a toy or a friggin' like anything, I'll take it.
I'm gonna listen to this podcast as a reminder.
All right. Yeah, on the way out there.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've got 15 hours to spare. Yeah.
Try to listen to it in like the 15th hour.
Yeah. I'll do that.
Because I know your memory is probably not gonna uphold if
you are correct.
If it's the first thing you listen to.
You are correct.
All right, man. Hey, it was great having you on, man. Thanks for coming in and talking about E3 with us. Dude, have fun in Japan and have fun in Denver.
Woohoo!
And yeah, that's it, man. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Word.